Anzac Day is a special day that we should all remember. It is the day to remember the soldiers who fought in World War I. These soldiers gave the ultimate sacrifice to fulfill their duty. Anzac Day can mean different things to different people. Our soldiers are remembered on Anzac Day for their feats of daring and bravery. On Anzac Day, many things are done to remember the fallen soldiers, such as the last post, the ode, and laying of wreaths. Anzac Day is held on the 25th of April, the day of the Gallipoli landing. The Anzacs were planning to attack the Gallipoli Peninsula. This was a terrible tragedy, as the Turkish soldiers were hiding just behind the beach at the peninsula. They opened fire on the Anzacs and many soldiers died. The medals that many soldiers wear are not only for their own achievements, but as a memory of the soldiers who have been plunged into eternal sleep. Anzac Day can be seen as a day of remembrance to those who not only fought in World War I, but World War II as well, and other wars as well. One of the ceremonies held for Anzac Day is the dawn service. The reason the dawn service is held at this time is because the dawn, or half-light, was the time most countries started their attack. But what does Anzac Day mean to us? For us, Anzac Day is the day we not only remember, but thank those who made such a great sacrifice for Australia. There has never been a better time to show Anzac spirit than now, especially with the coronavirus pandemic going all over the world. Yes, I know, all official Anzac Day ceremonies have been cancelled. We can still find ways to show Anzac spirit in such difficult times. These things can bring out the worst in us, but they can also bring out the best in us. So I believe, for us, Anzac Day is the day we were saved. Brave soldiers fought in war and died, so our generation and many more generations to come will be safe. This is why Anzac Day is so important. Even though it's been 104 years since the first Anzac Day, we should still remember them like it was yesterday. They served our country, so we should show our gratitude to them, lest we forget.
Anzac Day is very special and important to us Australians and New Zealanders. It is a time when Australians come together to honour and remember the brave Anzacs who fought and died for our country at Gallipoli and all wars that Anzacs have been involved in. They fought and died for our country so that generations such as ours could live in freedom. We take this opportunity to commemorate those men and women whose sacrifice allows us to enjoy our life today. Bravery, compassion, loyalty, mateship, endurance and self-sacrifice were the qualities they showed. These qualities have been instilled into the Australians' way of life, and qualities we at school endeavour to follow. At Anzac Day ceremonies, we take time to show our respect and say thank you to the men and women by laying wreaths, playing the last post, observing a minute of silence and showing our respect. This is why I remember each and every Anzac Day. It's these qualities shown by the original Anzacs that is now known as the Anzac spirit and is etched forever in the hearts of Australians and New Zealanders nation forever. We take this opportunity to say thank you. This is not a day to celebrate war, but a day to commemorate those men and women who fought and continue to fight for our freedom. This is a day to pay tribute to those men and women whose sacrifice allows us to enjoy our life today. As the last post was played, a sigh of relief was heard from the soldiers, as this was time they could take to rest from the danger and scary moments of that day. Extraordinary acts of self-sacrifice I remember each year when we take the time to say thank you. In the morning, at the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Good morning, Eatons and welcome to our 2020 Anzac Day ceremony. I'd like to thank Elise and James for sharing some of the information about Anzac Day and the bravery and the self-sacrifice that our Anzac soldiers showed so many years ago. I'm standing here beside the Aleppo pine tree in the junior courtyard here at school. This is our connection with the Anzacs. In 1915, the soldiers of the Australian and New Zealand Armed Forces tried to take a ridge at Anzac Cove, and on that ridge was a solitary tree, so they called it Lone Pine. A couple of soldiers then brought home pine cones from that tree, and they used the seeds to grow new trees back in Australia. The tree we have here is actually a descendant of that original pine tree at Anzac Cove. So it's a very significant part of our school, and we often just walk past it each day without realising just how important it is. For us, it is difficult to imagine the hardships that the soldiers had to endure when they were there at Anzac Cove. However, at the moment, we are getting a small taste of some of the things that the diggers faced. One, they had to follow rules. They were in the armies, there were orders and expectations about what they had to do. They had to get permission to do certain things and make sure they were doing their part as part of the Army Corps. They also had to deal with a fair bit of boredom because they had to sit around, particularly before they started the battle, and had to make their own fun. That's where we get that sense of humour and the camaraderie that is so important to the Anzac tradition. They're also dealing with a situation which was out of their control, and they needed to be part of a much bigger group of people to solve that problem. We're doing that as well at the moment. It's important for each of us to do our own part in solving a much bigger problem. Every individual has to do the right thing. Finally, on behalf of the school, I thank our parents who are either past or present members of the Australian Defence Force. This is a very uncomfortable time to be away from family, and I know that many are on deployment, whether in Australia or around the world. And we really do genuinely thank you for all the work that you are currently doing. I'd also now like to introduce Caitlin and Tyson, who will be reading some poems about the Anzac tradition. Thank you very much.
Anzac Day was over. The old digger had done his best. His body ached from marching. It was time to sit and rest. He made his way over to a park bench and sat with lowered head. A young boy passing saw him, approached and politely said, "Please sir, do you mind if I ask you what the medals you wear are for? Did you get them for being a hero when fighting in a war?" Startled, the old digger moved over and beckoned the boy to sit. Eagerly the lad accepted, but he had not expected this. "First of all, I was not a hero," said the old digger in a solemn tone, "but I served with many heroes, the ones that never came home. So when you speak of heroes, it's important to understand the greatest of all heroes gave their lives defending this land." The medals are worn in honour, a symbol of respect. All diggers wear them on Anzac Day. It shows they don't forget. The old digger then climbed to his feet and asked the boy to stand. He carefully removed his medals and placed them in his hand. He told them he could keep them to treasure throughout his life, a legacy of kind left behind, paid for in sacrifice. Overall, the young boy was speechless. He couldn't find words to say. It was there the old digger left him, going quietly on his way. In the distance, the young boy glimpsed him, saw him turn and wave goodbye. Saddened, he sat alone on the bench, tears welled in his eyes. Never again ever did he see him, but still remembers his pride. When the old digger told him of heroes, the young boy just sat and cried.
I saw a kid marching with medals on his chest. He marched alongside diggers, marching 6 abreast. He knew that it was Anzac Day. He marched along with pride. He did his best to keep in step with the diggers by his side. And when the march was over, the kid was rather tired. A digger said, "Whose medals, son?" To which the kid replied, "They belong to Daddy. He did not come back. He died up in New Guinea on a lonely jungle track." The kid was rather sad then, and a tear came to his eye. The digger said, "Don't cry, my son, and I will tell you why. Your daddy marched with us today, all the blooming way. We diggers know that he was there. It's like that on Anzac Day." The kid looked rather puzzled and didn't understand, but the digger went on talking and started to wave his hand. "For this great land we live in, there's a price we have to pay. For we all love fun and merriment in this country where we live. The price is that some soldier his precious life must give. For you to go to school, my lad, and worship God at will. Someone had to pay the price, so the diggers paid the bill. Your daddy died for us, my son, for all the things good and true. I wonder if you understand the things I've said to you. Kid looked up at the digger, just for a little while, and with a changed expression said, with a lovely smile, I know my daddy marched here today. It's like that on Anzac Day. I know he did. I know he did all the blooming way.